If you want to make real progress in the gym, your supplement choice matters a lot more than you think. It's what I would have said if I wanted to sell you something. But the truth is, most supplements are actually a scam. Now, this is a topic I've really been interested in ever since I started training. And this is just human nature. You always just want that quick fix. You want what you think others are getting that you just don't know about. But the truth is, that doesn't really exist. And I spent years, and I mean years, and countless of hours, more than I would even want to admit, trying to look through all of the supplements and what they do and how they work. And the conclusion that I come to is that it's just the basics that work. And they're not magic pills. They work a tiny bit, but I still think for most people it's actually worth getting whatever you can get. But there's also a lot of supplements that are just completely unnecessary, and a lot of supplements can actually do more damage than good. So now I want to go through what I have eventually over time just adopted and go through what kind of supplements I take today. And as I said, this is basically just the basics. There's nothing fancy, nothing extreme here. Once in a while, I'll still try and experiment with different things, but it's very, very rarely that I'll go outside of what I'm going to show you today. So these are just what I have found to be like the basics that most people would need. And I really think that if you want to try anything outside of this, you should have a good reason for it, and you should actually know what it does and what harms it can have. Because every supplement can have harm to it, you just need to understand the risk to reward benefit for you. But what are some things to think about when you want to actually try a new supplement? One of the first things to think about is, are you actually trying to solve a deficiency, or are you trying to get super physiological levels? Now, trying to solve deficiency would be something like vitamin D supplementation, because more than half of the population is actually deficient. Whereas on the other side, having elevated levels could be something like taking fish oil, where there's not really any deficiency level per se, but we just know that usually more is better, at least to a certain extent. So that is one thing to think about. Another thing to think about is, are you actually targeting a specific condition? So are you trying to lower your blood sugar? Are you trying to improve your lipid profile, for example? Or are you trying to improve cognition? Most supplements have a lot of things that they do, but some things they do really well, and some things that, like on paper, they can do theoretically, but you shouldn't really aim for them to have a beneficial effect in that area. Another thing you can think about is, can you actually track the effect of the supplement? So things where you can track if the supplement is actually working is you can, for example, take blood tests for your omega-3 levels in your blood. You can also take most health doctors will actually give you a vitamin D test to see where your vitamin D levels are. Things that are a bit more difficult to test would be something like magnesium, because you can get a magnesium blood test, but it's very unreliable, especially because most of the magnesium is actually deposited inside your bones. So you could actually be deficient in magnesium and your blood work would still be 100% fine. And at the same time, you would have to severely overdose before you would actually see it in your blood work. So that's also some things to consider regarding what kind of supplements that you want to try. Next up, do you actually understand the mechanism? Now, you don't need to have a biochemistry degree here, but just trying to understand the basics of what is the supplement actually supposed to do. Now, this is also going to be different regarding what supplement it is, because some supplements we still don't actually know what the mechanism of action is. Like a lot of medicine, we just know that it does this, this, and this, but we're not entirely sure why. This is generally going to be considered a bit more risky because we don't know if there's any adverse effects or other interactions. But the more that you can understand the mechanism of action, the more you can actually get out of supplementation, and the more you can try and specify it for you. Another thing to consider is, what is the risk to reward ratio for you? Now, for most people, taking something like an omega-3 supplement is actually quite beneficial. It will improve your lipid markers, it will improve some scores of depression and other neurodevelopment types disorders. It has shown to help with ADHD, and I even think it has been shown to help in other like impulsivity disorders. Let's say that you need to go under surgery, for example. Then you would actually not want to take omega-3 supplements, because omega-3 supplements can make you bleed more for an extended period of time. It has some antiplatelet functions. So if you think that you're going to need surgery soon, or maybe you're pregnant and you need to give birth soon, then you maybe need to taper off the omega-3s just for this period of time. So this is also why it's important to know for you, is this going to be beneficial or detrimental? And there will always be some sort of risks with supplementation, and there will always be some sort of benefits with it, but you just need to outweigh the costs and benefits for you for that specific time of your life. And this can also just change depending on where you are in your life. But yeah, we have gotten that out of the way. Now I actually want to go through the supplements that I have found to be most useful for most people. Now I want to start off with the AM supplements. because I've actually classified it into taking the supplements in the morning or taking them at night. Because some supplements can promote wakefulness and other supplements can help you fall asleep. So it makes sense to sort of time them differently depending on where they lie on that spectrum. So for the first of the morning supplements, we have vitamin D. Now, right now, I'm on this 35 micrograms a day tablets. That's about 700% of the RDA. There's also a bit of vitamin D in a multivitamin. And I actually just taper up and down throughout the year because, let's say in the summer, you don't need as much vitamin D as in the winter. So when it's the summer, I would usually leave these out, and then I would just take like a multivitamin with a high dose vitamin D compared to multivitamin. That's usually something like 400% of the RDA. And then like right now we're in the autumn, then I take this and a multivitamin, and that's around 800%. And then when we get like deep into winter, so like December or January, I will usually take something that's a bit stronger than this. It depends a bit on like what you can find, but sometimes up to around 1200%. But what does vitamin D actually do? Most people know that vitamin D has some sort of role in like calcium regulation and keeping your bones healthy, but that's not actually all. Although that is very important, and vitamin D is actually crucial to help you absorb the calcium that you eat in your diet, that's not the only thing it does. Vitamin D has so many interactions in the body, and it even has its own receptors, that it's actually not a vitamin, it's a hormone. Now, vitamin D also has a lot of benefits in immune regulation. It can regulate a lot of the immune cells in your body and actually sometimes help dampen excessive immune reactions. This is also why it has been shown to reduce the incidence of some autoimmune diseases like type 1 diabetes. Because it can regulate the immune system, it can also regulate your risk of cancer, because at all times your immune system is fighting cancer cells. And here vitamin D can actually help enhance how it can react to cancerous cells. Now, next up is going to be vitamin C. So what I take is just around 400 milligrams a day. Like, this is going to be a water-soluble vitamin, so it's pretty hard to overdose on vitamin C, because if you take more than your body can handle, you'll just pee it out. Although like excessive doses can lead to like gastrointestinal issues, it's not really something you should be that afraid of. Generally, the vitamins you should be afraid of taking too much of is going to be the fat-soluble vitamins, so vitamin A, D, E, and K. But of the water-soluble vitamins, it's not really an issue. Vitamin C is actually a cofactor and involved in a lot of reactions in the body. So it has a lot of small roles that it does in several systems. And this is why we think that it has a lot of different effects in a lot of different systems, but it's not that clear yet as to like if it's actually clinically relevant. So although you can find thousands of studies on like if you put vitamin C in something in petri dishes, they do this, this, and this, it's actually not that clear if it will be relevant to human beings. But one thing we do know is that vitamin C is actually quite crucial for the immune regulation again, just like vitamin D is. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, and one of the things when you're sick is that your immune cells will actually start something called an oxidative burst against pathogens. So when you're sick, you'll have a lot more oxidative stress. So having some antioxidants in can just help your body recuperate a lot quicker. This is also why it has been shown that vitamin C can decrease the duration and symptom severity of the common cold and some other diseases. Also something like upper respiratory distress syndromes. Next up is creatine. There's not a lot of people going to the gym that doesn't take creatine nowadays. And there's a reason for it, because it's a cheap supplement, there's not really any risk profiles, and it has a lot of benefits. Now, any creatine will do. Monohydrate is perfectly fine and also the cheapest. Creatine helps with ATP replenishment, so you can actually push a bit harder for a bit longer in the gym, and this could theoretically improve your strength. Another thing that creatine does is it increases intracellular hydration, so you will add a bit of water weight once you take it, which again is going to be intercellularly, so it's not going to make you look puffy. I see a lot of people say that like once they start creatine, their face are getting puffy, and no, this is going to be intracellular. So it's basically going to be your muscles that are just going to be looking a little bit fuller. Other things that creatine has been studied for, and is actually getting a lot of traction now, is in like the cognitive realm. So things like depression, anxiety, and sleep deprivation. There's been a lot of studies where creatine has a lot of benefits, especially in higher doses than what has typically been recommended. For a long time, it has been the typical take 5 grams a day and you're perfectly set. But as it turns out now, you're more likely to take around like 15 to maybe even 25 grams a day if you wanted to have these cognitive effects. One of the really cool things about creatine is how it affects sleep. Because if you're sleep deprived, generally, you will perform worse in pretty much every metric you could imagine. And what creatine actually does is that it can act as a buffer for this. So if you're supplementing with creatine and you have a night of bad sleep, you will not see the same amount of detriment as if you wouldn't take it. So this is something that I see a lot of people could benefit from, because in the modern day and age, there is just going to be several nights a year or maybe even a week where you just don't have that good of a sleep. So if you can have a bit of a buffer around the detriments to a bad night of sleep, why not take it? Now, these were the morning supplements. So now we're going on to the evening supplements, or like the right before bed kind of supplements. So the first is going to be magnesium. Now, the time is not really that important. Some people will say it is, although I would say try to not get the inorganic versions, so something like magnesium oxide, because that's going to be very badly absorbed. So if you can get an organic thing, so what I take is going to be magnesium bisglycinate. So that's just magnesium and glycinate combined. You can also have magnesium L-threonate. That has some more potential in crossing the blood-brain barrier. And there's a lot of other kinds of like organic magnesiums that you can take. And some of them will have a little bit of different effects. Magnesium bisglycinate, for example, is going to be more of like a sleeping aid, whereas the L-threonate is going to be more like cognitive effects. But in general, most magnesium will have the same effects. Magnesium is going to be another cofactor involved in so many enzymatic reactions that like we could spend 3 hours talking about what it can do in the body. But I don't want to bore you with that. So some of the headlines with magnesium is that it can improve your sleep quality, and it can also improve blood sugar regulation. Now, I take around 1,000 milligrams of magnesium bisglycinate a day, but that is not going to be the same as elemental magnesium. So the amount of elemental magnesium is going to be 200 milligrams from 1,000 milligrams of magnesium bisglycinate. I think right now the recommended daily intake for men is around 420 milligrams. I get roughly half of that from the magnesium supplementation. Now, as the last thing, we have omega-3s. Now, I already talked a bit about this, but in general, omega-3s is just like a must-have. Now, omega-3s have like a special place because you can't really overdose on them. Like, it's just a fat source, and it's a really healthy fat source. And the amount of benefits that we see from omega-3 supplementation is actually quite astounding. Now, the biggest effect seen is going to be on your lipid markers. So things like your triglycerides, your LDL, and your HDL cholesterol. Other things that it can help with is also general cognitive health. So it has been shown to improve cognition, and it has also been shown to delay some forms of dementia. There is also some evidence suggesting that omega-3 is really good for your immune health and can help regulate certain aspects of it. Now, in general, omega-3, the more the better. I would recommend getting at least 500 milligrams of EPA and 500 milligrams of DHA. And most often, I would actually recommend getting around a gram of each a day. Now, this may seem like a lot for a lot of people. This is also because in general, the normal omega-3 supplements are just underdosed like crazy. So you need to find some that is actually good quality. But if you can find something and get around 3 grams of omega-3s a day with at least a gram of EPA and a gram of DHA, then you're good to go. Now, these are just the general supplements that I would take and I would recommend 95% of the population to take. But remember, without all the other things in place, these things won't do much. You will still need to focus on your sleep, you'll still need to focus on your training and your nutrition. But this is just going to be another tool in our arsenal that we can use and we can dispense whenever we want to. So it just makes sense to do it when we have it at our disposal.